An interesting game here tonight at Jack Edwards Reserve, South fans. We've come away with a 1-1 draw. I think in the end, it was a very, hard-earned 1-1 draw. First half, we saw South Melbourne. There was one change from the team last week. In came Lirim Almazi and out went Jerry Salathos. The way the half actually panned out, South Melbourne, I think, seemed to have gotten the tactics quite correct. Oakley did have, a chance very, very early on with Hertel where, a cross came in from the right and, he somehow flicked the ball onto the upright, one of those that really wasn't going in, but it was closer than what you expected. The far edge of the upright. But, that was a wake-up call for South Melbourne. But really, I felt as the half went on, South Melbourne has, reaffirmed today that they have, not only on paper, but, as it's playing out this season, one of the best defences in Australian football. You have quality players, who are both good on the deck, giants, have experience, and also a goalkeeper in Piers Clark, who is also very, very capable as well. And then when you talk about, Luke Pavlu and Josh Wallen, again, two very, very capable players in the middle of the park, probably with a bit more of a defensive perspective to their game, especially Pavlu, than an attacking game. The base that South Melbourne sets up with, every game this season is going to be very, very difficult for any team to break down. And we saw that today, with Oakley, especially in the first half. South Melbourne was able to hold them out. Obviously there was that chance very, very early on with Hertel. Worked our way into the game, and eventually we saw what Henry Hoare is capable of doing in the 28th minute. Some absolute magic down the right-hand side. 2 or 3 step-overs, made that yard of space, whipped in a really nice low ball, and really Josh Wallen, who had been making a late run into the box, really couldn't miss effectively, putting the ball past the Oakley keeper and giving South Melbourne a 1-0 lead, which I think people in the stadium, the general feeling was, okay, South Melbourne has gone ahead. That typically doesn't happen here at Jack Edwards Reserve. To be fair on the balance of the game, I don't think it was unexpected. And as the half sort of panned out, I felt South Melbourne started to solidify their position. It's worth mentioning that the whole front three in the first half, that's Daniel Clark, Henry Hoare and Harrison Sawyer, we're having a very, very good game. We weren't creating chance after chance, but we were creating a lot of half chances. And it was very similar for Oakley. It's just that with our, proven defensive capability, certainly on paper and as it's been panning out this season, it's becoming blatantly obvious when you have players, like Yankovic, Marshall, Adams, Almazi, these are centre-backs that start in any team in Australian football, and they're all in the same team. And as mentioned prior, the goalkeeper, Piers Clark, is also extremely capable, really a sensational keeper. Has all the tools to his game. Height, comes out for the punches, likes to play on the ground, very, very good shot stopper, vocal. So, we saw basically a game that in a way sort of played to South Melbourne's strengths. We soaked up the pressure, scored the goal, managed to nullify Oakley, and really went into the halftime break, I feel, deserved 1-0 leaders. Now, in the second half, full credit to Oakley. They did, they raised, I guess, their game. They seem to be moving the ball more. I'm not sure, if South Melbourne tired. I don't think that was the case. I just really felt that Oakley, basically lifted their tempo 1 or 2 levels and showcased why, many people have them, finishing first this season, including myself. Not sure, after today, if that's still the case. I probably would still have them in first position because in that second half, like many teams who are in the top 2, they showed they have another gear. So that's something, that South Melbourne is still developing our style of play. Certainly when going forward, we haven't developed that fluency. We obviously have a really good defensive base. We don't have that other gear at the moment. It's hopefully something that we're able to develop throughout the season. But Oakley showed today, especially having the likes of players like Decker, who scored a cracking equaliser approximately in the 60th minute. I felt South Melbourne were a bit lucky because the ball bobbled, in the air to Decker, who took it well, almost in full stride with his chest. I think the South Melbourne defence, was adamant he used his hands to do that, but it's impossible to tell, certainly in the stadium, unless you were behind the goals. And looking at the replay on YouTube, it is very difficult to tell. And then really, Wade Decker had so much to do. A volleyed shot that he sent into the top corner, from the edge of the box. He deserves credit, a fine finish. And really, I felt if Oakley didn't score a goal like that, even though they were dominating possession, even though they have players who clearly can up at a level, in the final third. I didn't finish, listing off those players like Joe Guest, who was sensational in the second half. It was impossible to get the ball off him at some times. He went past 1, 2, 3 players, probably 2 or 3 times in the half. Oakley obviously also have players like Knowles, who, hasn't played a full season. My understanding is in the NPL Victoria. I think they signed him last year, but he's such a capable player, and I think that's very obvious. When watching him play early this season, he, from my understanding, I could be wrong in my selection of player, but Oakley did also send a thunderous strike in the second half into the middle of the crossbar. It's probably one of those that Pierce Clark probably would have had covered because it was in the middle of the goal, but it was hit with such velocity that it nearly broke the crossbar, and I think that was Knowles. So he showed today that, between Guest and Knowles, you have 2 players that can really turn it up. Then you have Decker as well, who I think has that capacity. And then that's supplemented by the likes of Thurtell, who, to be honest, I felt today was a little bit anonymous. I may have not been paying too much attention to his game, but compared to the other players I just mentioned, he didn't have the same impact. But, then you throw in Tyson Holmes, who's happily sitting in the midfield, obviously a very high-quality player, can play low balls, diagonal balls. So Oakley did show in the second half that they can turn, the pressure on. And it didn't help, obviously, that South Melbourne was forced to take Harrison Sawyer off. He did, in the phase of the Wade Decker goal, obviously just before the ball fell down to Wade Decker, he was down, I think, maybe potentially slightly concussed. He did play on for a few minutes, but he wasn't able to recover fully from that injury. He came off. We also took off Henry Hoare, and then really the ability to play that out ball to Harrison Sawyer was lost. So all of a sudden, really a defensive game had to step up, probably even another notch higher, and we were able to keep Oakley out, thankfully. Credit, though, I'll also give to Jerry Salathos. Obviously, the first 2 weeks, he hasn't been the Jerry Salathos that Australian football knows. He did come on today, and he did show some glimpses, some really positive glimpses, some nice play down the wing where he crossed the ball in, and he also had a couple of chances, one notably in the second half where he probably went past 2 or 3 players, drove into the box. Unfortunately, couldn't get a good effort off with his right foot. He did also have a penalty shout, which, the referee quickly waved off. I did receive a text maybe a few minutes later saying it was a penalty, but look, I haven't seen the replay, so it's hard to say. The referee did seem very confident. But yeah, all in all, hopefully painting the picture that South Melbourne, really had to grind and rely on our defensive strength to hold Oakley out in the second half. It was encouraging that we did it. It was encouraging, that we were able to grind out a point, because there are, after Oakley, there's probably Avondale, and then pretty much the quality, isn't of the same standard. There are very, very good teams, and it's a very, very even competition. But I don't think there are teams that have got the players that the likes of Avondale and Oakley do to put you under constant defensive pressure and have the ability to up their game, collectively in the search of goals. So for us to hang on, that's a great sign. But moving forward, next week against Port Melbourne for the rest of the season, I think our offensive and game in transition, how we move the ball from midfield to the attackers, might need some more variety. I know we don't have Marcus Schrone, who would help tremendously in that situation. I did speak to his father today briefly before the game started. He said he's probably a couple of weeks away. You could really see Marcus Schrone making a huge difference to this team, that has a really great base. He would, I think, just give us the ability to play through along the ground with confidence and just create danger from that area, and not over rely, on playing out balls to Sawyer. Even though our goal today was really well worked from Hoare along the ground, I do feel that when you've got such an asset up front, such a strong, powerful player like Sawyer, it's very easy to play to him. We are playing to him. It's been successful. Hopefully, in the coming weeks, we can work on some other solutions in transition and in the final third, and hopefully start getting some more wins as we look to consolidate our season in the NPL Victoria. It's Port Melbourne next week. Make sure you're there, South fans. The boys need you. A win would probably place us in the top 4. So let's help the boys get it. Go South!